Did you notice that Into the Spider-Verse 2 is filled with things that probably only adults would perceive? The new movie of the world's most popular superhero is filled with great things for all audiences, but surely some things will only be noticed by adults. This has everything to do with the fact that the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is always seen wearing a robe, because it's more comfortable. After all, adults are always tired and want to relax whenever possible. However, now Peter has to carry and protect his baby spider in a front backpack. Notice how he always protects her with one hand or both hands on top of her when he runs or jumps to prevent her from falling or shaking too much? A clear evidence of his fatherly protective instinct. This is just one of the 11 things that only adults had noticed in the second movie of Miles Morales, which we are going to tell you about today. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci is probably the most famous artist in history, as he painted the most expensive painting in the world, the Mona Lisa. The 500-year-old painting is worth approximately $1 billion, but it's not the only creation by the Renaissance artist. He has many drawings and other works, and that's exactly why the vulture, whom Gwen fought inside a museum, was entirely inspired by drawings of the Italian Renaissance artist. You can notice the color of the vulture and the strokes in his design, a clear inspiration from Da Vinci's drawings, such as the Vitruvian Man and other inventions of the artist. And you can see a detailed scheme of how the vulture's claw works when he fires it. If you pause the scene, it resembles Da Vinci's sketches of his inventions. The reference was so strong that even the vulture himself speaks in Italian, Da Vinci's language, when he says to Gwen, "Ciao ragazza," which means, "Hi girl."
Ciao ragazza. Sorry, the only Italian I know is from Mario Kart.
And when the villain faints, quickly a text in Italian appears again saying, "Notta notta," which means good night, as he literally passed out. Miles and Gwen! Man, practically everyone shipped Miles and Gwen as a couple because they're practically the same age and definitely close. And there's that scene that every adult surely noticed when they're sitting close to each other, upside down, in the true spider style. One thing was for sure, Miles was definitely into Gwen, and that slow approach of their little hands is an old strategy that surely many adults reminisced upon seeing that scene.
Well, it's the first time for everything, right?
I love romance.
The coolest thing is that in a comic released in 2016, the two characters actually started a real relationship. But more than that, they even got married and had children. At least in one version of them in one of the universes, but not in this movie's universe. At least, not yet. Sacrifice. If there's one thing that becomes clear in this movie, it's that it's the destiny of every spider to have a good dose of suffering and sacrifice on their journey. And this happens practically in an unavoidable way when it's explained that always, either an uncle or a police captain end up losing their lives throughout the history of each Spider-Man version. It started with Uncle Ben, the same one from the famous line,
"With great power comes great responsibility."
He died in many of the Spider-Verse timelines. This is shown throughout Into the Spider-Verse, even featuring scenes from other live-action films. But, as we mentioned, there's also the police captain, like the case of Captain Stacy. And believe it or not, adults understand a lot about this because it's something every adult has had to do. Sacrifices. In fact, sacrifice is even something that is part of Miles Morales' maturation process, as we see throughout the film. Parental struggle. And this has everything to do with what we talked about regarding sacrifice, with the struggle that parents, or those who raise us, face every day because maintaining a family is not easy at all. We see how they seek to balance their tasks and parental responsibilities with the joy and love they have for their children. You can notice how Jefferson and Rio make an effort to take care of Miles while also interacting with him, giving him space. The same thing happens with George, Gwen's father, when he discovers that she is the Spider-Woman he has been pursuing. But in the end, he accepts it because his love for his daughter is greater than his duty as a police officer. And finally, we have Peter, who admits that he was afraid of messing everything up as a father, but is definitely happy to have his little baby shooting webs, just like him. Stan Lee! Certainly, every adult Spider-Man fan cannot help but give the deserved credit to the legend Stan Lee. The creator of the webhead made cameo appearances in every Marvel movie until 2018 while he was alive, and in the animated adaptations featuring his creations, which are numerous, there is almost always a mention of this comic book genius. And in the Spider-Verse franchise, it's no different. We see him appearing in the store where Miles buys his Spider-Man mask, among other appearances.
I'm going to miss him.
Yeah,
We were friends, you know.
And this scene was one of the ones that also appeared in the trailers for Miles Morales' second film, The Spot's Job. The main thing that drives the Spot is revenge, like many villains. But in his case, all the resentment he holds is because he lost his job because of Miles. And on top of that, the new Spider threw a donut at the head of a scientist in the first film, who happened to be the very man who would become the Spot. The interesting thing is that this kind of feeling, connected to the loss of work and employment, is something that naturally every adult experiences, which is why Miles can't quite understand why he holds so much of a grudge. But if you remember well, even Peter Parker needed a job to live and pay the bills, even if it meant taking pictures of himself. Especially now that he has a little daughter to support. After all, great responsibilities require a salary. It's understandable why the Spot harbors so much anger.
Because of you, I lost my job, my life, my face. My family won't even look at me.
J.J. Jameson. Since we're talking about jobs, let's also talk about bosses, shall we? In some universes, Spider-Man works at the Daily Bugle, owned by the almost omnipresent JJJ. The fact is, this guy not only hates Spider-Man the most, but he's also a boss who's annoying and unbearable at the same time. And if there's one thing most adults understand and have experienced, it's having at least one annoying boss. If they haven't had one, they're probably one of them.
But could you pay me in advance?
But, joking aside, J.J. Jameson is truly one of the grumpiest and most quarrelsome characters in the world of comics, and he's always picking on Spider-Man, no matter the universe. Just ask the Lego Spider-Man. Spider-Man from the 1960s. If you watched this cartoon when it first aired on television, you're definitely old enough to be someone's grandfather or great-grandfather. After all, the first Spider-Man animated series is a classic from 1967, and, of course, a tribute to the very first web-slinging animation couldn't be missing. In the chase scene with Miles, we see him passing in slow motion, but it doesn't help much because he's in slow motion. So Miles passes him without much risk, but aside from being a very funny scene, it's undoubtedly something that the older folks surely noticed and associated with a distant past. Muhammad Ali! In Miles's room, you can see a poster paying homage to the man considered by many as the greatest boxer of all time, the almost unbeatable Muhammad Ali. If you pause the scene where Miles is in his room and zoom in, you can see that the excellent animation team of Into the Spider-Verse included a picture of a boxer and a variation of the legendary phrase that says, "float like a butterfly." Since Ali used to say he should float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, that's what he did to dodge his opponent's punches and achieve knockouts.
Kevin, what are we gonna do? You gonna float like a butterfly and sting like a bee?
At the end of the film, we see that Miles ends up in a dimension where his uncle Aaron is alive. But more than that, Aaron isn't the Prowler, but an alternate version of Miles himself. And from the dialogue, it implies that Jefferson, Miles' father, passed away in that universe. This certainly had a significant impact on the path the young man from that multiverse took, considering that Miles is around 16 or 17 years old, which is a young age to become a supervillain. But what can be noticed is that the absence of a stable family structure can sometimes lead to behavioral deviations that a bit of a maternal or paternal guidance could have prevented. These were the 11 things that only adults noticed in Spider-Verse 2. Comment down below which one you liked the most from the list. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the upcoming videos. Until next time, bye-bye!